Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Rams versus Jacksonville Jaguars Week 6 matchup based on analytics. And this is going to be a fun matchup. I mean, both of these teams are surprise teams. I mean, nobody expected the Rams to be as good as they are this year. Nobody expected the Jaguars to be as good as they are this year. So I think this is going to be a pretty fun matchup from that perspective. And of course, the motto of the show, each week I collect all of the current 2017 NFL team data in order to analyze and project potential NFL performance. And since this is a weekly collection, there will always be some fluidity with it. However, there will always be little nuggets of truth in every little piece of data you get that could become bigger nuggets of data as the season continues. So stick around as I analyze each week's matchups based on analytics. And if you're new to the channel, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So, starting with this particular matchup of the Rams versus the Jaguars, and to start out, the Jaguars are actually favored in this game. I understand what some of you guys are thinking. What, the Jaguars are favored? But again, a lot of the games I've been covering of the Jaguars, they've been favored. And let's get into some reasons why they're favored, because I think there's a disconnect between how the Jaguars are actually performing statistically speaking and how the media thinks they're performing statistically speaking. I think that's the best way I could put it. There's a disconnect between how the Jaguars are actually performing on paper and what the media actually thinks they're doing is a better way to put it. So I hate to say fake news, but it's kind of like that. But when we get to the Jaguars' basic NFL stat comparison stuff, so basic NFL stat comparison is essentially looking at how the offense is doing, how the defense is doing, in terms of various different sort of data points and metrics and stuff like that. And overall, it favors the Jaguars. I mean, when it comes to the total D score, which is basically a score that's derived from how good the defense is at preventing first downs and various downs and distances, where they're talking about preventing run downs, passing downs combined. The Jaguars are better in that respect than the Rams defense. So the Rams defense is, it's above average. And of course, you look at the total O score, which is basically the ability to get first downs as an offense. And the Rams are pretty good, but the Jaguars are actually a little bit better when it comes to getting first downs as an offense. So from that perspective, the Jaguars are one of the better teams in the NFL when it comes to preventing first downs on defense and when it comes to creating first downs on offense compared to the rest of the NFL. Again, there's a big disconnect between how the Jaguars are actually performing and how the media thinks they're performing. And then when you get to some other sort of data, so turnovers. Everybody talks about Blake Bortles and turnovers. Everybody talks about turnovers when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars and how turnover heavy they are. That hasn't been the case this year. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been above average when it comes to not turning the football over this year. They've had a 92.91 overall, and the Rams have actually been 60.31. The Rams actually have more turnover issues than the Jaguars this year. So again, there's a narrative about the Jaguars that isn't showing up on the field. And then, of course, when you look at sack percentage, both these teams actually do pretty well in terms of preventing sacks. So that's one thing I think is driving both these teams' successes. And the only real difference between these teams is that even though the Jaguars have been good in terms of getting first downs as an offense, they haven't exactly led to as many scores offensively. And that's kind of the big difference. The Rams have definitely had a very high offensive score percentage, which actually have a 98.90 out of 100, whereas the Jaguars only have a 79.69. And again, 79.69 is above average, but it just goes to show that the sort of differences and nuances that, the Rams are not as good in terms of creating first downs, but they are better in terms of putting points on the board, which ultimately can decide football games, But the biggest difference, I think, that swings in the Jaguars' favor is defensive score percentage. The Jaguars are rocking about an 83.31 out of 100 compared to the rest of the NFL, whereas the Rams' defense is at 18.43. So despite the goodness, the Rams' defense on paper when it comes to preventing first downs is above average, but they're not above average when it comes to preventing points. So again, from that kind of perspective, there is a little bit of a disconnect, but it just goes to show that the Jaguars are just a much more balanced football team from the perspective of they have an offense that is good, not great, but actually above average. They have a defense that's also very above average. And they have things that just matter a little bit more to winning. The ability to put up points and prevent points. Both those things are pretty even with the Jaguars. And I think those are other reasons why they're favored. On top of that, when you look at defensive stats, so turnover percentage, the Jaguars have the best turnover percentage in the NFL when it comes to turning the football over. Big part of their success as well. Sack percentage, higher with the Jaguars than the Rams. And of course, when you look at interception, obviously a lot of very high interception ratio for the Jaguars as well. So from that perspective, the Jaguars have the advantages as well. Their defense not only prevents points, but it also gets turnovers, it gets sacks, it gets interceptions at a higher percentage, which is another reason why they're favored over the Rams. Now when we look at special teams data, for the most part, neither the Jaguars or the Rams are very good when it comes to punt return yardage. They're kind of below average compared to the rest of the NFL when it comes to that respect. Kick return yardage, though, is more so with the Rams. When it comes to preventing punt return yardage, the Rams are actually better in that respect. But when it comes to preventing kick return yardage, more so with the Jaguars. The field goal percentage is more heavily with the Rams. The Rams have a pretty good field goal percentage compared to the Jaguars, who are about average when it comes to that respect. Extra point percentage is more so with the Rams as well. So when it comes to putting points on the board on special teams, so field goal percentage, extra point percentage, those are all more heavily in the Rams' favor versus the Jaguars, which also speaks to that offensive score percentage that I was talking about. I think the biggest thing that holds back the Jaguars to have a higher offensive score percentage is probably because of their special team breakdowns in terms of field goals, missed field goals, and those other sort of things. Then, of course, you look at punting average, more so with the Rams. So I would actually give the special teams advantage to the Rams. I think, when you look at the ability to create yardage with punt returns, you look at preventing punt return yardage, kick return yardage, you look at field goal percentage, you look at extra point percentage, I would say special teams goes to the Rams. I would say offense goes to the Rams, and I would say that defense definitely goes to the Jaguars. But I do think that because the Jaguars are more balanced, again, most of the data favors the Jaguars because across the board, they just have little advantages here and there that just add up to being the better team from that kind of perspective. I mean, we'll see what happens, but again, I think there is a huge disconnect between how the media views the Jaguars and what they actually are doing on the football field. If you're going to keep saying that Blake Bortles is this turnover crazy machine, he needs to start actually turning the football over, right? He needs to actually start to lead the league in turnovers, but he hasn't so far this year. So again, that's another big issue with me when it comes to the reporting of the Jaguars, but I digress. So when we get to some other sort of data points, so now we're going to get into completion percentage, and first down conversion rate, some other stuff like that. I'm not going to spend too much time on completion percentage, but this is the data for the Rams offense versus the Jaguars defense when it comes to completion percentage. Then, of course, if you look at the Jaguars offense versus the Rams defense when it comes to completion percentage. Then we get to first down conversion rate with the run. Very interesting matchup. The Rams have been very good when it comes to getting first downs with the run on first down, getting first downs with the run on third down, and second down has been their Achilles heel, so to speak, overall. The best aspect of the Jaguars' run defense is on first down, so that's going to be a big clash, but I do think the Rams will have some success because of second down breakdowns and third down breakdowns with the Jaguars. If you want to beat the Jaguars, run straight at them. Just run. That's what the Titans did. That's what a lot of these other, like the teams that have beaten the Jaguars, ran straight at them and were able to have success. So I think this is another sort of thing that kind of favors the Rams. Then, of course, when you look at rushing down, the Jaguars rushing offense versus the Rams rushing defense, and this actually favors the Rams. The Rams are pretty good when it comes to first down run defense. They're also pretty good when it comes to third down run defense in terms of preventing first downs. And the only advantage the Jaguars really have is second down. So this will actually be a pretty big clash, I think, for this particular game. And then, of course, you look at passing down. So this is the Rams passing offense versus the Jaguars passing defense. And the Jaguars will have success on first and second down. a big disparity in second down especially. So I think the Jaguars defense will have some effect on the Rams passing offense. Like, I think they will be able to slow down the Rams passing offense, but I think the biggest thing the Rams can do is to basically run the football. Like, if they actually commit to Todd Gurley and run the football a lot in this game, I think they actually could have a lot of success. And then, of course, when you look at the Jaguars offense versus the Rams defense, when it comes to first down conversion rate, more so goes with the Rams. The one area that makes me so suspicious about the Jaguars is just because of their third down conversion rate with the pass. Not that great. You're not going to win a lot of football. You're not going to continue to win a lot of football games when you have a third down conversion rate that's that bad. So that's the one area where I think there is some truth to Bortles not performing well. It's not really because of turnovers. It's more so because of that third down conversion rate. It just is not where it needs to be a consistent winner in the NFL. Then we look at sack rate. So this is the Los Angeles Rams offense versus the Jacksonville Jaguars defense when it comes to sacks. And honestly, it's pretty evenly matched. Again, the Rams do not allow a lot of sacks. They're one of the better teams in the NFL when it comes to preventing sacks. And they're going up against the Jaguars defense that creates a lot of sacks. So this is going to be a fun matchup to see how this ultimately ends up. Because the Jaguars have had a lot of success and they're going against a defense that does pretty well in terms of preventing sacks. Then, of course, you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars offense versus the Rams defense when it comes to sacks. And the Jaguars offense as well has been pretty good in terms of preventing sacks. Again, there's a big disconnect between how the Jaguars are playing and how the media says they are. But the Jaguars have been almost as good, if not better, in some respects, than the Rams when it comes to preventing sacks. Then you look at interception ratio. So this is the Rams offense versus Jaguars defense. And for the most part, most of the interceptions on the Rams offense have come in second down. That's also where most of the Jaguars interceptions have come. They've created most of their interceptions on second down. So that's going to be a key matchup to see what happens because of that effect. Then, of course, you look at the Jaguars offense versus the Rams defense when it comes to interceptions. And realistically, most of the picks that are thrown are on second down. That's also the down when the Rams don't really create a lot of interceptions as well. So I would say this is actually pretty evenly matched between the Jags offense and the Rams defense. So overall, how do I feel about this particular game? Well, I know I say this a lot, but I don't feel that confident about it, only because the Rams offense is able to put points on the board. And I don't know what the strategy is going to be in this game because, as I said, the one Achilles heel of this Jaguars defense is their run defense. Like, why risk it? Why run? Why throw the ball against Jalen Ramsey? Why throw the ball against AJ, Bowie? Why throw the ball against the secondary that has all this success when you can run the football right at them and have lots of success in terms of second down and third down conversion rate? So from that kind of perspective, if the Rams come into this game and they run the football down their throat, I think they actually could minimize a lot of the issues in this game tremendously that affect them. In terms of how the Jaguars offense performs against them, it's going to be tough to say. Again, the Jaguars defense performs pretty well in terms of preventing first downs, but they give up a ton of points in terms from an offensive score percentage standpoint. But you also have to take into account the Rams are better in terms of special team points, field goal percentage, stuff like that. So ultimately, I'm going to go with the Rams here. I'm going to go against the data. Again, the data favors the Jaguars. But I just think that the Rams offensively will be able to have success. I think they'll have the ability to run the football pretty well and pull sort of a Titans kind of victory against the Jaguars in this game. I think that it's got to be coming eventually because there's been a lot of talk about how good the Jaguars are. Again, as I keep saying, there's a disconnect between how they're performing on paper and how the media thinks they're really performing. And I'm not denying that they're performing well in a lot of different areas that are conducive to winning football games. But we still got a lot of football to go, and I just feel like the Rams are going to win this particular game. But let me know in the comment section below, who do you think is going to win this game? And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.